Many a time in Sunday school, we are posed with questions that ask us to identify our identity. What do you believe in? What does humanistic Judaism mean to you? If you were stuck in a desert island and could only bring one book, one movie, and one food item, what would you bring? And while these are all thought-provoking and interesting questions, I always had one that kind of gnawed at me. It's the kind of question that sort of wraps around various ideas that are often explored with religious identity, or just plain identity for that matter. It's actually not so much a question, but a demand, and a reasonable demand at that. It goes, name a time when you knew you were Jewish. Of course, Jewish people know they are Jewish. We know it simply because it's a fact. We're Jewish. We belong to a Jewish temple. We celebrate Jewish holidays. We checkmark B, Jew, on a census. All of these point out the fact that in the eyes of the government, our family, and ourselves, we are of the Jewish faith. But this statement probes you to dig a little deeper. Name a time when you knew you were Jewish provokes you to name a time when your Judaism created some sort of a feeling. It just so happens that most of the time that feeling is discomfort. So, this question usually invites you to name a time when you were the only Jew in the room. We all have a story, don't we? You're invited to your friend's Christmas party. A college roommate asks you about your horns. You go to Nebraska, and so forth. Now, to be perfectly honest, I have no story that answers this demand. A lot of people I know are Jewish. That's just how the demographic of my community turned out to be. However, I know very few humanistic Jews. I basically just have you guys. So when I talk about my religion to my friends, there's always this little thought bubble that pops out of their heads. The thought bubble is this: well, I guess you're not really Jewish then. Now, is there truth to that? Certainly, I'm not religious, so does that make me not really a Jew? Should I waste my time explaining to my friends the old statement, we don't base our religion around God, but we still try to learn from Jewish customs? You have no idea how many times I've said that. That's the line that tries to wrap up all of humanistic Judaism into 16 words. Sometimes I'm sick of saying that line. And my story of when I was the only humanistic Jew in the room revolves around that. I'm sitting at a lunch table in my school's cafeteria with some friends and a few acquaintances. I'm a freshman. Through the course of some organic conversation, the topic of an upcoming holiday or religious celebration is brought forward. I brag about how my services are only an hour long, and say that I feel no moral obligation to partake in fasting or any other painful tradition. I'd like to think that they were jealous. I'd like to think that jealousy is what inspired my friend to turn to me and say, wow, that's because you're a part of some crazy cult. I'm not embarrassed, because my mind is never present enough to be embarrassed. I'm laughing along with everyone because it's funny. It's funny, right? The idea that I, an American Jewish boy, belongs to a kooky religion is funny. Now, I'm not saying that it's true, but the thought of it is funny. So I say, pretty much. And then I go on to make some jokes about drinking Kool-Aid and pheton levels. As I continued to speak, I began to feel like I was doing something wrong. Something about it felt uncalled for. The conversation was short, and we all moved on, but I continued to wonder if it was the right decision to play along. Let's analyze. First and foremost, I am not above offending people. I don't believe in taboos, and the idea that people put so much importance on race, sexual orientation, and religion is funny to me. So, in response to that, I think it's fine to poke holes. Political correctness stifles society and makes life uncomfortable. The idea that we have to tiptoe around topics to avoid offending others is ridiculous. So, is it hypocritical of me to not make fun of myself? I guess it really comes down to what's important to you. What is in that box that you try to keep somewhat serious? I guess you could say that my religion fits neatly into that box. In order to avoid hypocrisy, I believe that I would never stop anyone from making fun of my religion. But maybe I prefer not to do it myself. This, of course, brings us back to the subject of identity. I chose in that moment to make my religion the butt of a joke. In a moment where I was acutely aware that I was different, I decided to join in with the game. I drank their Kool-Aid. I laughed with them. Now, I don't think this changed anybody's opinion of me. Nobody was jotting down notes about who decided to sell out their identity or make their religion sound crazy. However, I usually am tough on myself. Those who know me will tell you that I rarely just let things go. So when I take something that is important to me and let it become less than it should be, I have to think about it. I really just have to prioritize my ideals. Is it better to make a self-deprecating joke or to give respect to your religion, and in doing so, yourself? In this instance, nothing really came out of my decision. It was just a conversation. However, it led me to question how I would handle a similar situation on a macro scale. Say humanistic Jews were being persecuted. How would I handle that? Would I continue to make jokes, abandoning what I believe in, or would I stand up for my identity? I'd like to think that I have enough respect for who I am to be able to know that I am a humanistic Jew. That's not particularly strange, it's just a fact. I have chosen to continue my journey in my religion, and it doesn't matter if there are any other Jews in the room. In the future, I've decided to handle the situation differently. A man walks into a bar and sits next to a humanistic Jew. He turns to the humanistic Jew and says, "Hey, you're not really a Jew, are you?" The humanistic Jew chuckles. He knows that the real joke is knowing that the guy next to him doesn't understand how to respect his identity. He walks out of the bar and looks for new friends.